Okay, thank you everybody for listening today. My name is Bruce Burk, and you're listening to Business Buddha. I have a wonderful guest today, but before we get started, I just wanted to mention once again that the intro music that you just heard is Psognar. He is my brother. That is a Moombacore song is the correct term for what you just heard. And I'll leave a link in the description if you want to go listen to it. Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Maureen Famiano. Am I saying that correctly?
Famiano.
Famiano, okay. She is has a very interesting career in what she does with her company. She's basically a PR person, and she creates video content for businesses. And we're going to get into her background. Is actually she's met a lot of celebrities. We're also going to get into that as well. And she is in a very interesting sector, which is highly relevant for any business owner because, as many of you know, video content and video marketing is becoming much more relevant. If you're looking to get customers from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the other social media platforms, these are where people's eyeballs are. So if you want to get your products in front of people, a lot of these platforms is where to go. So without further ado, Maureen, please say hello and introduce yourself.
Hi, Bruce. Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here. A pleasure to talk to you a little bit about my background and what I do, and always looking to help people and guide them in my media space for 30 plus years.
And what is the name of your company?
It's MEF Media.
Okay. And can you just summarize exactly what you do for people?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So with my media company, MEF Media, you can find it at mefmedia.com. It's all about public relations, media relations. If a business needs to get exposure in the media world, I write a pitch for them, try to get the media exposure, both television and radio, and don't forget the podcast. Podcasts are huge right now, obviously. And then do video strategy, branding strategies, and then also media coaching. So you get an opportunity. How do you present? What things should you keep in mind in your interviews and interview techniques? And it's all about helping elevate them to the next level because I've done it for so long in my lane of media background.
Okay, so feel free to criticize me and my media lack of skill.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Are you somebody that's like filming commercials or like doing that kind of thing? Like, can you describe like some of the specific work you've done for companies?
Sure, absolutely. So we can do commercial work, absolutely, which is a little bit more higher end, involving a larger crew, going out and getting, the business in its different facets, both in a business office, out in the field, that sort of thing, maybe doing a little interview and cutting it all up into a 30-second spot that could air in radio and television. We could absolutely do that. But I also work with companies on a little bit smaller scale. I kind of tell people, don't overthink what videos mean. It really puts a video or a visual spotlight on their business. If you look at a website, a lot of websites have great photos, but you can't really get the gist of the person by those canned photos. And some of them are truly not even them necessarily. So I say you really need to take it that next step further. You can't get a person's business, their quality of work or their passion for their work by an image. But if you do a video where you kind of showcase what they do, how they work with their crew, how they work in the field, then that person looking for their expertise can really get a handle on, oh my goodness, look at what they're doing. I like their vibe, I like their story. And also for me, it's really all about storytelling, Bruce, because a lot of people think, oh, this is why I'm doing my business because of whatever. But they don't share their story, their background. And in having people on my shows at NBC and CBS for a long, long time, we would already be planning on whatever they were going to be talking about. And then they'd share one extra thing because I ask a lot of questions. And I'm like, what did you just share? You're involved in a local charity, or your kid does this on the weekend. I'm like, wait, that's unique, and I can tell it really matters to you. That makes you different. And anybody wanting to hire somebody in that lane would appreciate you because of that. So let's add that in. And they'd say, really? I'm like, absolutely. That makes you like followable and appreciable. That's a word. And then they'd get it. They'd say, oh, so it's about the stories.
Yeah. So let's just go through some of your credentials so people know who we're talking to. So you were previously you worked on WFLA Channel 8 in other CBS and other companies for many years. Can you just give a summary of where you worked and what you did?
Sure, absolutely. So in about 30 years in the broadcast industry, I started out as a reporter. I grew up in New York, and I was a reporter right out of college, actually in college. And I loved the storytelling. It really kind of started with that. Connecting with people, finding out their story, telling their stories. Did that for 10 years, but I got my interviews, I got the exclusives, and I was done. And I'm like, I needed more. So that's when I went into producing, which is truly crafting a whole half-hour show from a blank slate, I'd like to tell people. So you bring in all different kinds of entities of whatever show you were doing. And I did that for a long time. Moved here to Tampa Bay in 1996, moving to Channel 8 as the 11 p.m. producer, 5 o'clock producer, special projects, elections, hurricane, telling stories, working with the reporters, the anchors, all of that. I loved that. It's the crafting part. Then I moved into morning show television because news can be sometimes not so positive and a little bit negative. And I thought, you know what, I want more of news you can use and longer lasting influence, motivational, inspirational, that after a show that people at home watching would go away with a takeaway. Be it they could cook better, they could maybe be part of a charity in the community, they could learn something about how to do something in their home. And at the end of the day, we'd share that with them. And then we'd do it again tomorrow. And I did that for about 11 years, 7 to 8 years at Channel 8. And then I worked at CBS locally, daytime and Great Day Live for 3.5 years.
So who's the most famous person you ever met?
Met a lot of famous people. Tampa Bay is a big hub for people coming into our community. And anytime they'd come in, they'd want some exposure, of course. So they did the round robin of, their people would reach out to do the interviews. Probably the biggest and the most fun was Jimmy Fallon.
Nice. Yeah. I love Jimmy Fallon.
He was awesome. And he was as you'd hope he would be. I don't have any behind the scenes stories of, let me tell you. It was, oh my goodness. He's funny. He was cordial. He was engaging. And I have a really funny story if you have a moment. But when he was taking over for Jay Leno, he did his NBC show stops, and I was one of those who was kind of coordinating things behind the scene. I brought in an audience for daytime at Channel 8, which everybody, it was like the golden ticket. Of course, everybody wanted that to get there to see him. And I'm like, okay, what are we going to do differently for the show that day? I'm like, as the executive producer, thinking of different things. I'm like, let's do the late night animals. That would make so much sense. Busch Gardens is here. I had a great relationship with them. Back and forth a lot to get the Fallon people to agree to what I wanted to do. They're like, which critters, how many, how would that look? I'm like, he's done it before, when he would do kind of guest spots or whatever, and I knew he liked animals. I'm like, it'll be fine. Like, a lot of back and forth. Finally, they agreed. One of the critters that they brought was a 30-foot long python. It was crazy. So the funniest, and this was now, I don't know, 7 years ago or so. That was the last animal. It was like a skunk, an owl, another thing. I don't even remember because the snake totally took over. And it took 5 people to hold it. He was in the middle, the 2 hosts on either side, and then 2 Busch Gardens people. So in your mind, close your mind, see big, long, thick snake. Okay, crazy, crazy, crazy. The audience like, what? It was so fun. And they agreed to it finally. It all worked. It was like a lot of, I don't know how many emails back and forth, 45 to make it happen. At the end of the segment, fun, it was great, it was crazy, it was all that you could hope. Okay, we'll go to commercial break, although we weren't live, so in theory we just stopped. All of a sudden, in the studio, we heard this huge, I thought pipes burst. It sounded like 4 big gallons of milk or water was on. I'm like, what happened? And we're all not looking at that because we're getting ready for the next segment. Well, guess what happened, Bruce?
What happened?
The snake went to the bathroom. Who knew that snakes went to the bathroom? Of course they do, but it was just so crazy.
Wait,
so,
number one or number two?
Number one. And all of a sudden we're like, what? And it waited until like a commercial pause. It was quite funny. Like it had good timing, but we were like, what? So the Busch Gardens people had to come over and like clean it up, and we're like, what? And then all of a sudden, the waft of odor filled the studio. Fallon goes running in this coronavirus time that we're in now for the Purell container over by our teleprompter area. He like almost took a bath in it. He didn't get, and no one got sprinkled on or anything. Everybody was out of the way, but it was just the like craziness of the behind the scenes. He put some under his nose. It was so hilarious and crazy and funny. And we weren't rolling on it because that segment had stopped. It was just crazy, but it was a great moment. I have it on my Facebook page, and every year when it reappears, people in the audience were like, oh my goodness, that was the funniest episode ever. So it was just funny. That's my Jimmy Fallon story.
Yeah, you mentioned the coronavirus, and as we're taping this, it's just really starting to get. I guess a day or two ago it was classified as a pandemic, and I think they're just above 2,000 cases right now in the U.S. And let's see. The NBA season is suspended. You can't go to Disney World. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's and you really see the effects. Like when you came here, I didn't shake your hand.
Right.
Which is it feels very uncomfortable.
It does.
What are your thoughts on everything?
Oh my goodness, do you have a couple of hours? It is crazy, and in my world of journalism and news gathering forever, I feel like behind the scenes, like, oh my goodness, what are people doing? What are they doing? I posted something on my Facebook a couple weeks ago, not maybe a week and a half ago. I said, why don't people do like checks on like sickness or flu from the car? Why don't they do that? Sure enough, then a local pediatrician did that. I posted it, and they even liked that I had posted it because I had commented on it. And then randomly, one of the news stations, or probably a couple by now, did a story. You know, it's like people are trying to figure out how do you get through this craziness. I mean, it's easier to say what is still on than what's canceled. NBA, NCAA changing things, the MLB, NHL, EIO. It's crazy.
I just saw, I watched an episode of Stephen Colbert,
yep.
And like last night he did a show with no audience.
Right, they all are. And today's news break is they are postponing the shows. Jimmy Kimmel is the only one going to be doing a show, at least for today. You know, we're on March 13th today. But the others are postponing. They're going into a little bit of a hiatus.
Yeah.
And I talked to a friend of mine at Channel 8, and they're kind of in a hurricane mode. When big storms, big events come in, it's like all hands on deck to do the coverage and figure out what you need to cover. And that's kind of what they're doing, and I'm sure other news organizations are doing the same thing, because you're in a news gathering, sharing of information mode. It's ever changing. You can't not look at like a feed or a news source for an hour without things changing. So it's constantly changing. But we have to be appropriate with what we're sharing as to not continue to create the panic that is what it is right now.
Yeah, and the weird part about it is, like, I'm not worried that if I got it that I would die or anything, but like I could give it to somebody. I don't want to give it to somebody else and that who could have a problem. That's the fear, I think, of it. Mm-hmm.
I think we just we all need to wash our hands. We need to be cognizant like you are. We all need to be aware, make good decisions, understand this will pass. We need to get through it and figure out what it looks like for your family. Even my daughter's school is now on a kind of shutdown for a couple of weeks, waiting for my son's college to see if they're following suit. So we're all impacted in different ways. And what I've kind of shared with people is it is a crazy time. This is one of those things we're going to look back on in 5 and 10 years probably and go, remember when? But we've got to get through it. So how do we as people genuinely get through it together? And like, it was maybe silly, but I always go back to just being kind. So take the time to be more kind to people. Say hello or good morning, because people are in a daze of crazy like panic, that they could use that little smile or that hello or that I hope you have a good day more than ever, because people don't really know where to turn and don't know what to do. And if they're kind of captivated in their home and they can't go out, then it goes into a whole different weird sense of, not even having the face-to-face with people. So it's in a really weird situation right now. We have to get through it. We have to figure out how to best do it.
Okay. So let's shift and go back to, your product and your video production. One thing I notice, and I think as a former reporter, you'll really know how to answer this. If you look at the ads on YouTube, for example, they have a button that you can press. A lot of times, it's the 5-second button, and Netflix, or not Netflix, other platforms have some of the same thing, where you can click out in 5 seconds if you don't like the ad. So as someone who wants a customer who's selling something, you've got 5 seconds to get a person to watch what you're saying. And I think the same, you don't have probably more than that on a Facebook ad or an Instagram ad, because a lot of us, on Facebook, you're scrolling and you notice that like every other third or fourth post is an ad. And it's they try and tailor it to, customize to what you're looking at, and it only takes a second for that person to just swipe up and ignore it. So what is your thought process on like how, if you're producing something for one of those platforms, is like, how do you keep somebody within 5 seconds? It
is hard. And we're going to this information age, if we even call it that anymore, because it's information seconds. It's crazy. When I started out as a reporter, we would have to open the yellow pages, that phone book thing, find the person that you want to call them, and wait. There was no instant like getting messages back and can you do an interview in such and such a time. Now with the Facebook ads, Instagram ads, the YouTube, all of that, it really is a mentality of get me at hello. Instantly. As an executive producer, I would get hundreds of emails a day on people wanting to be on a show. And in the subject line, you literally have to get me there before I even open up an email to see if it's something that I want to do. So you might craft a lovely email to pitch your story, your event, whatever. I may never see it, because if that hello, that subject line doesn't get me, I'm never going to see it. So it kind of starts there. Similar with the videos, you have maybe 3 seconds to get me. So you've got to do something big, impactful, loud, good videos, good graphics in that first couple to get me to go, okay, what is this? I need to know more. So it is a challenge, depending upon the brand, the business, the people, the dynamic. There are different ways to showcase it. I love the strategy behind working with companies to help them figure out, it goes back to the storytelling, but it is critical. You got to get them right away.
So what would be like the entry product for somebody? Like, let's say somebody has, they're just starting out, they don't have a lot of money, and they're skeptical of that marketing platform. And they, there's a lot of different platforms you could choose. You could put up signs, or you could do mail, you could do all sorts of things. But like, what would be like the cheapest sort of entry product that you could produce for someone, where that you could say, okay, why don't you just do this first, and let's see how this does, and then maybe we could do more.
Sure. It comes back to, and it goes back to really the storytelling. Many people would come to our shows over the years, and they would come to talk about whatever. We would already have the questions aligned. We'd know what they were going to be talking about. But I would often ask them about their weekend, their day, their event, whatever the case is. How was your weekend? They would often then share some loveliness about them. And I'm like, wait, what did you say? That is cool and different and unique about you. Somehow we have to weave that in, because then that makes the audience remember you in the financial world, in the realtor world, in the lawyer world, whatever the case is. You got into this world because of something that you wanted to do to help people. You're passionate about something that happened to you in your life. So in the videos, I would guide them about, let's get to know who you are a little bit. Share a little bit about your story. Because once people click with you and who you are and what you are and why you're doing this and why you want to make a difference, they're going to remember you. And that's key. If you're just in the same lane as anybody else, you're just in the same lane as everybody else. And if you only talk about, well, I do this and this and this for your craft, well, so does everybody else. So the key really is share your difference, share your uniqueness, because you got it. I'm not making it up. I just help you remember it. I help you find it and put the spotlight on it. And a lot of times people will say, oh, I didn't know that was important. And I say all day long that's important, because think about people that you've met, and when you've had that extra conversation or that extra question or that extra dynamic, when you found out something really kind of special about them, the way you look at them changes and the way you appreciate them changes. I'm just in my lane now of PR and media specialty and video production, helping them realize, oh, I get it. What would it look like? It would be a consultation. It would be a story kind of sharing. I would ask a lot of questions about who they are, their spirit, their family, their hobbies, in addition to what they do. And then we would put together something that would incorporate that. And sometimes it's just talking to people with some images to start it, like a quick paced video, to get that going. And then the beauty can take off from there. And then sending people, if you have a meeting, to say, you want to know a little bit more about me? Here's a start. You send them the link, you send them to your website, your social, and then they get to know who you are.
But so looking at it from a cost-benefit analysis standpoint, like let's say we're talking about doing a Facebook ad, and like as an entry sort of test marketing, like how long do you think the video should be? Because obviously the length of the video changes, the content, it changes how much it costs to pay for the marketing of it. It probably changes the cost to how much you cost. So like how long do you think that video should be?
It depends on what they've done before.
Let's say Sita was done nothing.
Okay, so attention spans, we know this. Squirrel. People don't have long attention spans. So short is good. Short is good. Key points.
What is short?
You could do a 30 second.
30
you can
seconds.
do a 30 second and try to really be really strategic, really intentional, really focus on it. Have somebody working with you, like myself, who can really hone in on the who you are. And then what does that 30 seconds look like? It looks like some quick paced editing to share who you are, some of your background, some of your images, to share your story. And then some really crafted messaging in that 30 seconds to get people to know who you are. And then if you share it right, if you do something right about it, you can see people wanting more. And you're just trying to capture their interest quickly. You could do a long video, but you don't know if people will even take the time really to watch the whole thing. So I would say for starters, from somebody who's done nothing, it really starts small, but intentional, and really utilizing those 30 seconds strategically.
Yeah, I find that what works with me is ads that are funny. Mm-hmm. And I'm always laughing at, like, there's so many ads, especially when you see like the Super Bowl ads.
Yep.
Like a lot of them, what is being sold has absolutely almost nothing to do with what the ad is about.
Sure.
And it's just if you look at the Geico ads, for example, you'll watch it and it's funny and it's something going on with like. And then at the end you find out it's a Geico ad, and it's
right.
like
surprise. right.
So what do you think about all that, like in terms of the use of humor?
Well, humor, and especially in this crazy world that we're in with the panic that we're in right now, people need a little humor. Not to discount what we're going through at all, but some levity gives you a little bit of peace of mind. So for Super Bowl, I think that works crazily. From the Doritos ads and the goats doing the funny things to the beer ads. All of that's so creative, and it's just funny. For somebody starting out, you could be funny, absolutely. You just have to figure out, where does your personality take it? If you think you can be funny and we can figure out a way to be funny, sure. it all really depends upon the person. But funny's good. Thoughtful, I think, is good. Creative, like some sort of a very, not just like an interview in a lovely office. That's not going to move the needle. But if you do something different, and think differently, like maybe you're, just thinking, maybe you're a skydiver on the weekend, and you do that because each time you do a skydive, you're going to give back to a charitable organization. What? I'm totally making this up. And you do something like having just gotten off the plane, having, landed, stuck the landing, and then and now you're going to go to work to do whatever you do. Like, people would go, what? But interesting. I'm just trying to think of something whimsically right off the cuff. But you talk them through it, you work through it, you try to be different, because it shouldn't be like one template fits all. Ever. Ever, ever.
Yeah. And so another big thing that you do is you're a media coach. Mm-hmm. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, so that's somebody who, like, you would train a business owner or the like to, like, how to behave, like if they were on a talk show, or if they were interviewed like on a podcast, or if they were something like that. So can you explain like what that
Sure.
is?
And I liked your word behave. I think that's funny. Right. This is what you don't do. No, it was cute. I think what it really is like, how do you present, right? So I could come in having not done any interviews ever, which isn't the case, but like, hi Bruce, nice to meet you.
Well, just for the record,
right.
I know if you're listening to this, you can't see her, but she's very animated and very. So she's practicing what she preaches.
That's funny. I am a little animated. My family, when we go places and I go up to strangers, they're like, oh no, here she goes again. But I just like working with people. But in the coaching part of it, it's more like telling them how to be inflective in your voice. With radio and podcast, you can't see us. So you need to convey your message. You need to be dynamic and engaging and fun and informational. But how do you do that? And if you've never done that, you just know your specialty in your career, your business, that's fine. But I help you understand why it's important. And we do some role playing, kind of like what I just did, kind of flat. And then I show not so flat, and they're like, okay, I get it. I did a coaching session with a client recently, a couple months back. We did one interview that I got for this person out of Boston. And the host, because I have good relations with media around the country, reached out and said it was good, but it could have been better. They might have gotten nervous when they first began the interview, even though they're not being seen, but it was just the dynamic. So I appreciated them telling that to me. I took some time to coach again and did more role playing for the next interview. It was a podcast. Well, it worked because she's now a co-host on a podcast out of Chicago. So it's just the inflection, it's the back and forth. And like we were talking with interviews, you want it to be a tennis match. You want it to be a give and take. You don't want to be like, thank you, Bruce, I'll talk to you in 30 minutes. No, it's your show. I'm your guest. People need to know that, even though they're so excited about their business. No, you're invited on their show, but you need to pay attention to who's the boss.
Yeah,
Bruce is the boss.
There's a Goldilocks of an answer where, like if you go on a talk show, they don't want one word answers, but they don't want you to talk for 10 minutes. So there's like,
totally.
there's a good answer, but then you need to stop and let another question in, because, if you're like the host, for example, like I don't want to interrupt you. So now I'm very self-conscious of how I'm speaking.
No. You're doing great. I'd give you an A+.
And what else can I ask you?
That was good inflection, bro. No.
But what you're saying is, I think, good for, like, even if you're not a business owner, if you're, like, in the service industry, like, even if you're just a waiter, or if you're seeing customers every day, I mean, that could help even those people, because they're presenting themselves to customers, and they, one of the best ways to keep customers coming in is they like someone who works there.
Right.
And so I think that could help really anybody.
And it's the media coaching for media opportunities. It's coaching for presentations. If you have to present in front of a crowd, what does that look like? That looks different than a media opportunity, but I help them with that. Standing, positioning, where you look, exactly what you're talking about. It could be a teller at a bank. But if you've gone into a bank and cashed a check, got money out, what leaves you with a better feeling? Somebody who's like, hi, or somebody who's like, good morning, how are you? I like your sweater, I like your shirt. They just convey a little bit of message of, wow, I'm more than a robot. That goes a long way. And for companies who, like you're saying, you have them in the door, you want them to come back. If you don't give them a very good interaction, they're going to be like, oh, they've got choices. We all have choices. We all can go somewhere else. But if you take the time to help them understand the importance of it, it makes sense. It just makes sense. And it's fun helping them see the light bulb go off to go, oh, okay, I got it.
Okay. And so, like, why don't you go ahead and give your contact information for someone, like, if they're interested in since we're talking about this, like if they want to call you, like how would they contact you?
Sure, thanks. So you can check out my website. It's mefmedia.com, mefmedia.com, or you can give me a call at 813-495-0663, 813-495-0663.
One thing that's very interesting also about you is that you are a cancer survivor.
I am.
And do you want to just explain how that's impacted you and your career?
Well, I think what's interesting about life, we have one life and we have to get through it. And when things happen, it's how you get through it. For me, when I was diagnosed 10 years ago, with colon cancer, I was very busy working in my media lane and thought, it's nothing. I don't know why I thought it was nothing, because I wasn't a doctor and didn't play one on TV, but I just thought, By the time I got in, it was further along than I had expected it to be. It ended up being stage 3 colon cancer. And during that journey, it was quite interesting because even when I was diagnosed, the doctor didn't really expect me to be the one on the other side of the door. He expected the 80-year-old, and I wasn't 80. But getting through it, it was about advocacy. It was about asking questions. It was about really sticking up for yourself. And if you don't have somebody to do it for you, then you've got to do it yourself. So I would guide anybody going through an it. I call everybody who has a health challenge or a challenge in life. We all have an it. That happened to be my it. And I asked a lot of questions. I was my own advocate. But at the end of it, I know I got different outcomes because I asked a lot of questions. And I guide people to do that. Don't just settle for the first or second opinion necessarily, because it may be the third or fourth that gives you a different path and makes your life different than it could have been. And I'm still here. I'm still a vibrant part of the community, doing what I can do, giving back. And I have a lot more to do. And if you're in the lane of a setback or a hardship, it's not fun, but just try to be as positive as you can. Surround yourself with people who lift you up, and take one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 5-minute stretch at a time to get through it.
So let's pivot off of that just to, because obviously a big portion of this program is wellness. And so for the people that are listening, one of the biggest things I want to convey is that, wellness and health is so important to be successful. And so let's talk about, just from a media perspective, I've noticed that people in the media, people that are like on talk shows, for example, I think they have to be exercising. They have to, because I don't think you can be on television and be animated and do all those things without really taking care of yourself. So can you talk about, what exercises or diets people that are doing, reporters are doing, and that kind of thing?
Sure. And everybody's different, but I think a lot of times, and in the media, there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of stressors. So not only should you be working out for working out's sake, you should work out for stress relief's sake, whatever we're doing, right? So a lot of times for our my colleagues, we actually had facilities in the studios where they could work out before they come to work, and then take a shower at work, and then go on about their day. Sometimes there would be groups that would go on a kind of lunch walk together to get out and just kind of debrief and then focus on that. And sometimes it's just after work. It really depends on your schedule because there's so many different schedules in a newsroom. You have the early morning, you have the midday, you have the overnight, the evening, and then the overnight. It's just really a matter of working it into your routine. In the newsroom, it's not a 9 to 5. It's a ish to ish, And then and probably in your lane of work too, there is no standard. And then in a situation like the world that we're in now with the coronavirus, it's probably extra long shifts because you have to be in the forefront of handling the emergency because the community is relying on you for information, and it's your job to give that information. So you have to be on your best game at all times. And if you slip up, the audience may not be very forgiving. They'll find another source. So you have to be on it. And when that on it means you have to give it your, 120% while you're working. But when you're not, for your family, who you're not seeing as much maybe, your colleagues, it's taking that time. So that could be, joining a gym. It could be going, running around your work area. Sometimes, depending upon where it is, that's more conducive than others. And taking the time to sleep. I think sleep is really important and not overrated. You need to get the right amount of sleep because you have to function, and you have to function well and not be cranky, and then do the work that you need to for your family, for your colleagues, and get the good stories that you need to. Eating is essential too. Depending upon where your shift is and where you are, you don't go out to, in eating, I remember when I was the 11 p.m. producer, I didn't really eat. I just worked through, and I'd eat after, which was crazy because that would be midnight. But I would work through my lunch because I was just so focused on my show, and it was ever changing and just really focused. But, bring some healthy foods with you. You do your research to find out which you like best. There's so much juicing going on, the clean eating, eat healthy, cheat once in a while, because if you don't cheat, then you'll be mad at yourself and you'll blow everything off, right? So indulge yourself occasionally, but just be well, because your health depends on it. And the other thing is really, I feel like a doctor now. Playing the part of the doctor is Maureen Famiano. Go to the doctor. Make appointments. I would tell people when they were in I don't know if something's going on. Well, you know what? If you wait longer, it will be going on. So go in, make the appointment, make the wellness check, because if something is going on, finding out about it sooner rather than later is much better than waiting and then it grows into something worse. So just get your wellness check, eat right, be well, get sleep. Maybe on a Sunday, I know I do that for my family, not always, I'm not perfect, but on Sundays sometimes making a big batch of whatever and then have that be something as a go-to for the kids' lunch for the week, or the snack bags. Make it a family thing. Everybody, get out the vegetables, chop them all up, put them in baggies. Sounds simple. Get the fruit, but eat better. Eat better and wash everything before you eat it.
Well, it's very impressive to see you. I just want to say, being someone who has dealt with the cancer issue and seem to have bounced back and have good health and a career and everything you've had. It's very, very impressive.
Oh, well, thanks. There was no alternative. I wasn't going to let it. I wasn't going to let it.
Had you not told me that, I would have never known.
No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't. And I think that's the thing we have to get through is, if somebody would meet me and think she did it, then hopefully I can inspire somebody else to do it too.
Right. Because
I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't looking for colon cancer, but it happened. But I beat it, and I'm here.
Right.
So you can too.
So let's do a little bit of, I like to do a little bit of a popcorn
I love
segment
popcorn.
with, well, I'm not going to give you popcorn.
Caramel? No.
Because there's a lot of people who are very interested in what, you're not a CEO, but what people that are successful, what they do and what they read and all that kind of stuff. So who's like your number one hero or person that inspires you?
Well, it goes back to the Reeves. I think when Christopher Reeve had his tragic horse accident, his wife did so much to lift him up and let her career go by the wayside. And then she got lung cancer. What? And then she passed. Now you see their son doing Good Morning America, and it's quite remarkable that he's kind of keeping on the legacy. So for me, it goes to inspiring people who work through things and don't let it define them. For me, it's about positivity, whoever you are, be it a religious person, be it a regular person who posts things every day to get people to think positively, or taking the time to look at the flowers or look at the beautiful sunrise or sunset. To me, it's about that space, because there's so much negativity out there. I don't let it impact me. I try to remove myself from it as much as we can, because it's everything is everywhere, but it's about that. It's about just finding those nuggets every day and being a conduit and a facilitator of like-minded niceness and kindness. Kindness wins. If you find it, if you allow yourself to believe in it. I don't want to be so simplistic, like, oh, she's living in a fairy tale, but I'm here and I maybe shouldn't be. That I believe if you are just a good person, and if you be positive, if everybody did, kind of like the Brady Bunch box, right, of positivity, if I did something positive to you, then you did it to somebody else in a day, wow, that would be kind of impactful. And we do it all again tomorrow, because that day's over.
So I'm sure your schedule is maybe different now than it was when you were doing shows at 12 o'clock, but do you have a specific like morning routine, or something like, do you eat a specific breakfast or exercise in the morning? Like, what's your thing?
Well, my thing is bananas.
Okay.
Because with colon challenges, I need my fiber. So I feel like a monkey, but I have to have my banana every day. And I have coffee, and I was a late coffee person. Like, I didn't have coffee forever in the newsroom, which was so standard forever. So it's funny, now I have my iced coffees. I wake up early. I wake up at 5:30 every day. Even if I don't have a meeting until 9, I'm just an early bird. I'm an early riser. And I don't sleep great, because I'm always thinking about things and stuff and angles. I just am that person. So I keep a notebook by my bed, which is not great. So don't necessarily do this, but that's just how I roll. I'm always thinking of angles and things. I try to eat healthy, my routine wise. If I can go to the gym, I don't really do so much running like around my neighborhood, which I could, but I go to the gym and do, the bike, I do some weights, that sort of thing. And then eating as a family is important to me, and I have the luxury of working from my home office or at a workplace. That's still important to me, with my family members dwindling at home. But that's important if we can do that as a family, because that's when you catch up, right? Like, how was your day? Like, eye-to-eye contact, phones, all the technology away for a little bit of time to reconnect, and then wrap up the day. And I don't really wrap up the day just because I have my own business. Doesn't mean I wrap up, 5 o'clock, it's over. I'm always looking for angles on the news and reaching out to people and saying, hey, did you see that? Maybe there's something that we could add to your business or your angle or whatever. Like, it doesn't stop. But that's how I roll. And I just, information's good, people are good, meeting people, lifting people up.
You mentioned this sleep issue. I think a lot of people now, the sleeping or lack of sleep has a lot to do with people's phones and not being able to, like, I think there's a lot of studies that show, like, if you really need to cut yourself off at like a certain time. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's 8, maybe it's 9, and you just need to put it away, because it's like the screen is stimulating your brain in a certain way, and it's really a book is better. Something like that, to go to sleep, because you're not like stimulating your brain in the same way.
Right. I think you're absolutely right. I try not to too much. I might check a social feed, maybe around 9 is my last time, but that probably truly is too late. If I don't have to answer an email after, say, maybe 8:30, I try not to, just because I don't want to be a 24-hour service. At some point, we need to not be available, sort of, right? But waking up in the middle of the night, I don't check my phone because then that re-stimulates you, and then you can't get back to sleep necessarily. But you're right about the technology. Technology, while it's so super incredibly helpful, it's also super incredibly challenging, and we all need to be better at when we use it, how we use it. Yeah.
Okay, and what do you have a book that either your favorite book or a book that you would recommend, like that's in your lane for someone who wants to learn about video advertising or video production from like a business owner standpoint?
Well, I'm actually in the process of writing one. I
Yeah.
thought, you know what, surprise to you, but I'm like, there's so much that I've learned and I'm creating over the years. I'm putting that into a book right now to help people to share my knowledge, because it makes sense with just understanding it better, from the PR to the video to the strategy to, engagement. It probably will be out late summer is my hope. And I don't have a book that I refer to because I refer to my head. I refer to me. Or colleagues in the business too. If many people who leave any industry, right, then they sort of go out on their own. I have a lot of colleagues who are in different lanes of media too, and we can collaborate on things if we have a question or whatever. That's kind of how it works.
Do you have a title for the book?
I have a working title.
Okay, do you want to share that?
I don't want to share it.
Oh, okay.
Because it's not out. But I'll follow up. You can refer to it later maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a nice little story you sent me that I think would be interesting to talk about. You helped produce or launch a video. I'm just going to read your description of it. It says, "Local family killer whale encounter in Mexico that made it to the Today Show and Ellen." Do you want to explain what that means?
So, in this business, it's fast-paced. You have guests coming in and out of the show. Every day you have 7 guests on the show. Then you have their friends and family who might come in, that sort of thing. So you could have a show full of at least 7, if not 14, if not 21 people, right, in a show dynamic in a day. We had one day years ago where there was a mom who was there because her daughter was on the show for Girl Scout cookie time. So I'm running around like I normally would, like a chicken with my head cut off, because trying to get people in place and guests here and there and whatever. She's like, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Sure." She's like, "How do you know if a story is a story?" And I said, "Well, it's kind of the gut check. What is your story? What is it? Have we done it before, seen it? Whatever." I said, "Well, do you have a story?" Of course, that was kind of the lead into it. She said, "Well, yeah." She quickly shared, because we had a lot of guests going on and that sort of thing. She's quickly shared that she went on a vacation. Her husband and she encountered, drumroll, a pod of killer whales. Okay. And she didn't know what to do with that story. And I'm like, "What? You get me a killer whales? Like what?" I said, well, I can't really talk about it now because we have a lot more show to do and I have to focus on that. But do you have a card? Is there a way that I can get back to you? And she gave me a card, and I said, "Okay, well, we'll connect." I kept the little card in a little clutch that I would carry around with my phones in it at the time. And every day I'd look at that card. I'm like, I really should call her back. And it got slowly edges frayed around. I'm like, okay, today I have to call her. A couple weeks later, I'm like, "Hi, remember me? You shared that you had this story." "Sure, right," I thought. Well, I said, "Do you have any video of this killer whale encounter?" And she said, "Well, actually we do." I'm like, "What?" So I said, "Well, why don't you send it to me? I could take a look at it to see if it's something that could be." So she sent it, and I'm like, "What?" If you can visualize the dolphins behind the boat wake, any boat, anywhere, that sort of thing.
Is this a video that I could link to?
Yes.
That's on YouTube or something?
Yes.
Okay.
And this was that, except it was killer whales. I was like, "What?" So I don't look at it very long before I call her right back, and I said, "What? When did this happen? How did you get it? La 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 la." She shared the whole story. They went on vacation. They're dive people from the Lutz area. They encountered these whales while they're down below. The dive masters pull their little cords or whatever below the surface to say, "You need to rise up." So they get up to the boat and they point in the distance to the killer whales, and they're like, so she's using a new camera to record these killer whales coming closer to the boat wake. It was just crazy. And I said, well, what have you done with this? She said, nothing. I didn't know what to do. I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to invite you back to the show. You can invite your daughter with her Girl Scout cookies, but she's not going to be on the show. You and your husband are going to share this story of capturing this crazy, amazing video. And she's like, really? I said, yes. And I said, I think this is going to blow up. This is going to be really huge. It's going to go viral, I think, and just be ready. She's like, sure. I said, no, I think it is. Had them on the show. It was a great segment. I did 2 segments on their visit, the equipment they used, then the encounter, like to build it up. It was crazy. Upstairs, we were downstairs in the daytime studio. Upstairs, NBC ended up doing the story too. And I said, you need to put your name on the top of your video so that anybody anywhere who then sees it can remember it's you guys. She said, really? I said, yes. It blew up. If you find any of the links anywhere, it's, I think last check, it was like 30 million views. It ended up on Ellen. It ended up on the Today Show. It ended up on National Geographic South Africa, CNN, MSNBC. It was crazy. They were calling me to see if I could be like their manager with interview opportunities because they just didn't think I was going to be right or that it was going to happen. And it was just the crazy pure play of capturing this lovely moment. And it was awesome. And I even had the Busch Gardens people, when Jack Hanna was in town, I took them over there with a video to show him to see, because he's all over the country, all over the world, if he had ever encountered anything like that. And he was pretty funny. He said, is this photoshopped? And he knew that it wasn't, but it was so crazy rare. And he believed too that it was just the whales having fun in the wake, just like the dolphins. But it was amazing. And it was just fun. And it was my gut that knew what to do with it and then did it.
So we'll put a link down in the description for if you're listening, if you want to watch that video. One other thing I see here in the notes that you gave me, it sounds like you're someone who can like help a business owner or someone like get media appearances. Sure. Is that just correct? Can you describe what services you offer?
Absolutely. Thank you, Bruce. So basically, if a business wants to showcase whatever they're doing, or what they're doing, or what they do uniquely, we work together to develop a pitch, to develop a way to put that out there to the media, because they're always looking for story ideas, but the business may not know how to go about doing that. So they hire me to be their public relations specialist and their publicist, really, and then I work with them on developing those sorts of things to get them the media exposure, be it radio, podcast, TV, and then when you get those opportunities, to try to put the assets together, the video, create some videos. Sometimes I would have guests on the show that would have nothing visually to tell their story. If it was TV, you need that. So I would guide them on what things they would kind of need. They'd kind of gather that behind the scenes, images, that sort of thing, so that when we pitch you, you're ready to go. And the media coaching too. So when you get that opportunity, you don't talk for 10 minutes and the host says, and thank you, we'll be right back, because they haven't had a chance to talk.
So what do you say to somebody who... because if you're in the consulting sort of business, one thing you're competing with is just the large quantity of free material that's online, YouTube videos, articles, ebooks. What do you say to somebody who's listening to this and they say, well, I'm interested in that stuff, but I could probably just get it online?
You can get whatever you want to learn, probably in a lot of different cases, but you don't get me. That sounds really silly, right? That was a little cheesy. But you don't get my passion, my energy, my way to convey a message. And they could be reading all day long and taking notes and be like, okay, what did they say on the YouTube video or the material they're reading? But if you have a one-on-one, you'd be like, oh, okay, I get it. I get what you offer. I get what you've done over the years. It's different. Like with anything. You could learn how to be a plumber, but it might be easier to meet with a plumber to say, what are some things that you should keep in mind when you have a clog, right? In the different lanes of people's businesses. So that's what I would say would be the difference.
Like swimming almost. It's like you can't learn how to swim from a video.
Right.
You gotta have someone in the water with you,
right,
teaching you.
And I'm in that water. I'm in that boat. Yeah. And then it's just a matter of building a rapport, building a camaraderie, building a trust, right? It comes back to trust with whoever people work with. You have to have belief in them. You have to have the back and forth. The credentials are there, but they have to trust and believe, and then the proof is in the feeling afterwards, and then the exposure that you get, and going from there. And on my website, I have testimonials from people that I've worked with who are quite pleased with what we've been able to do.
And is this like, meeting the coaching you're talking about, or all that other stuff? Is this something, if you want to open like a restaurant and you're busy, can these people meet with you like over video chat, or does this have to all be in person?
The way technology works now, it can be either or. If it makes sense that we meet face to face, because you can't get me on Zoom necessarily, you can't get my energy, but I can convey my energy on Zoom too. So whatever works, really. It's just a matter of that beginning conversation to get to know, okay, what are you looking for? Is it an event? Is it a grand opening? Is it, we've already done this, we haven't thought about doing something else? It's really the conversation starter that needs to happen, and however that looks, we can make it happen.
Okay. Well, we're getting sort of towards the end of the program here. We're almost at an hour.
Wow.
But I'd like to just wrap up with targeting, because that's a huge thing. Because it's not just, I think one of the things you may find when you write a book, for example, is writing the book is not the hard part. It's the marketing of the book that's really important. And I think the same thing goes for like video production and all that stuff. It's not just the making the video. It's what do you do with it?
Sure.
So what do you think? Like, what would you advise somebody like that wants to target certain customers? Like, do you know anything about that, or what's the best way to go about doing that?
Well, once you have your product done, be it a book, a website completed, videos for YouTube, whatever, you do, like you're saying, have to figure out how do you get that out there. There are different ways to create a constant contact, to send it out there, send out notes, and different ways to do the blasts to send them back.
Constant contact is like email marketing.
Exactly. Okay. You can do that to send them back to, because I don't think you can sometimes, depending upon the resource there, you can't always put a video in it. So you'd have to send them back. There are different ways that you can do that, but you have to, again, come back to who are you targeting? Who are you trying to focus on? With videos, it comes back to getting those people in the possibility, right? Because those are the clients that you may not have yet. So you need to figure out, where do you put it? And how do you help them find you? That sort of thing. You could do a referral campaign where you ask people to refer people to you and give them something if somebody like hires you, for your service. There are things to do that way. There are all sorts of different things you could do to get the ball rolling. It's just a matter of understanding what the video could do for you as we talk visually to get that going. And then once you get going, you could even do grassroots behind the scenes to say, hey, would you share this with somebody else? Or do you like this? Does that make sense? Or do almost like a little bit of a game, like if you like it, you're one of the first people, you might get $25 off your next need. People love coupons and things, so you can almost make a little bit of a game out of it to get that ball rolling, because there are lots of people in the different spaces, but you want to get their business.
Yeah, something that happened to me recently that I thought was brilliant marketing is I went to this bar that's right next to my gym. I'm going to plug this bar because I like it. It's called Levin Brewery. It's I think it's Leaven. I'll put a link to their website in the description. But so I go in there and you can't even really tell what it is from like the outside. They have like very dark windows. But
the brewery?
Yeah,
uh-huh.
And so they're right by my gym. And I always would pass it when I leave, and I was like, what is this place? Because you see people outside, and it says brewery, but you can't really see what's going on inside. So if one day, after my gym, I just decide to have a very healthy post-workout beer.
There you go. You earned it.
It was one of those days.
Right.
And So the guy goes in after my beer and he gives me a free drink ticket, so I'll come back.
Yep.
So then a couple weeks later, I take my friends there, and I use my drink ticket, and I say so he gives me my free drink, and then they try to get me again.
See?
And so then they give me this
nachos.
I'm gonna show it to you actually. They give me this coin. It's like if you can't see this, it's a wooden coin, and it has their logo on it.
Nice.
So I did spell it correctly.
Yes.
They give me this, and they say if you come back with this, then you'll get a prize. How good! That's brilliant marketing.
Right. And the fact that their workers remember to keep doing this.
Yeah.
Because it's only as good as your employees remembering to do it, and they did.
I am so curious.
You're so going back today.
What this is going to get me.
Did you ask them what they could be?
They they just said prize, and so I don't know what it is. So that's human curiosity at its finest. Is like I'm going to go back to this bar just to turn this coin in and probably get a shirt or something that's insignificant, but like the curiosity is bringing me back there.
Right.
So.
And you have it in your. He had it in his wallet.
It's in my wallet. Yeah.
He's ready to go and find out. That's on next episode. But that is good. That's creative, right?
It is.
You build an incentive. You build a comeback. You build a loyalty. So all of that goes to that business that you had passed so many times. You took the chance, and now you're going back to the third visit.
Right.
And then there'll be a fourth because there'll be another prize. That's great.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, let's plug your contacts one more time, just for people that listen to the end if they want to talk to you. Just if you want to do your email address, phone number, website. If you have a social media handle, let them know how they can follow you, contact you.
Thank you, Bruce. That's very nice. Coin and all. I don't have a coin. I need a coin. So my email is Maureen, Maureen, at mefmedia.com. Maureen at mefmedia.com. The website is mefmedia.com. And my phone number is 813-495-0663. 813-495-0663. And I am on social. You can find me at MEF Media or my name, Maureen Famiano. Famiano's kind of not Smith. It's F-A-M, F as in Frank, A-M as in Mary, I-A-N as in Nancy, O. Would you like to buy a vowel? Because I've got a couple. And thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and good luck with the Business Buddha. It's a great format, a great show, and you're bringing a lot of really kind of cool people in, so that's great.
Yes, thank you so much for attending, and I'll just wrap up by saying please subscribe to us on YouTube. The show will be available shortly in the Apple Podcast app. It's a whole nother story about how to get in there. It's into that walled garden, but and so all of the links to the show and Maureen's links will be in the description. And please tune in soon. One of our next guests is a psychotherapist who's going to give me therapy live on the air. No, I'm just kidding. He's going to talk about his...
Love it.
He's going to talk about his business and what, and probably how most people need what he does. So we'll have you on again after we find out what this coin is.
I like it. I'll remote in. Good luck with that. I hope it's great.
All right. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next episode.
If our only ship sinking, I'll swim you